Imagine a vault. It is buried deep beneath the capital city of a major industrial nation. It is guarded by soldiers, biometric scanners, and steel doors thick enough to stop a tank shell. This is where the nation keeps its life savings, the emergency fund that ensures its survival in a crisis. Now, if you were to crack that vault open and look inside, you would expect to find gold bars, or perhaps pallets of the country's own currency, stacked to the ceiling. But you wouldn't. Instead, you would find digital entries on a ledger representing the debt of a foreign country thousands of miles away. You would find United States Treasury bonds. This is the strangest, most counterintuitive economic reality of our time. Every major country on earth is forced to save money in a currency they do not own, controlled by a government they do not elect. They are locked into a game where the rules are written in Washington and the House always wins. To understand why the global economy feels so fragile right now, you have to understand this trap. You have to understand why the world is working hard to accumulate pieces of paper that America can print for free. To see how this works, let's strip away the complex jargon of macroeconomics and look at a single, hypothetical country. Let's call it Republica. Republica is a decent place. They have factories, they have farms, and they have their own currency, the peso. But Republica has a problem. They don't have oil, and they don't have advanced pharmaceuticals. They need to import these things to keep their society running. Here lies the first hurdle. The country selling the oil does not want Republica's pesos. Why would they? They can't spend pesos in their own country, and they are worried that Republica might print too many of them, making them worthless. The oil seller demands to be paid in something universal, something liquid, something trusted. They demand the US dollar. So Republica has a choice to make. To survive, they need to stockpile dollars. They need a savings account. Not in their own money, but in American money. This is what economists call foreign exchange reserves. But how does Republica get these dollars? They can't print them. Only the US Federal Reserve can do that. Republica has to earn them. They have to grow bananas, mine copper, or manufacture cars and ship those real, tangible goods to the United States. In exchange, the United States types a number into a computer and sends them dollars. Pause for a second and think about the dynamics of that trade. Republica is trading finite resources, hours of human labor, minerals dug from the earth, goods that took energy to produce, in exchange for digital tokens that cost the US virtually nothing to create. This is the Exorbitant Privilege. It is an economic superpower that allows the United States to run a permanent deficit. The US can consume more than it produces because the rest of the world needs to save in dollars. But the trap goes deeper. Once Republica earns those dollars, they can't just shove them under a mattress. Inflation would eat them alive. They need to earn interest on those savings. So, they take those dollars and loan them back to the US government by buying treasury bonds. Effectively, Republica is shipping goods to America, getting paid in dollars and then immediately lending those dollars back to America to finance American spending. It is a hamster wheel. Republica runs on the wheel, sweating and working, powering the American consumer engine, just to maintain a pile of savings that they hope they never have to use. Now you might ask, why don't they just stop? Why doesn't the world just agree to use something else? They have tried. But the network effect is a powerful cage. Because oil is priced in dollars and global debt is issued in dollars and everyone else is saving in dollars. Breaking away is incredibly expensive. If Republica decides to stand alone and save in gold or euros, but their neighbors and trading partners are all using dollars, Republica exposes itself to massive volatility. If the dollar strengthens, Republica goes broke. So, the world behaves like a herd. There is safety in numbers, even if the herd is heading toward a cliff. For decades, this arrangement was viewed as a fair trade-off. The world got a stable currency to trade in, and the US got cheap credit. It was an uneasy marriage, but it worked. The US Navy kept the shipping lanes open, and the US dollar kept the balance sheet stable. But recently, the tone has changed. The skepticism is creeping in. The fundamental flaw of saving in a currency you do not own is that your savings are technically someone else's liability. And a liability is a promise. You are betting your nation, SE survival, on the promise that the United States will pay you back, and more importantly, that the money they pay you back with will still be worth something. We are seeing cracks in that promise. First, there is the weaponization of the system. In recent years, we have seen that if a country gets on the wrong side of US foreign policy, their dollar reserves can be frozen. Imagine saving for 30 years, putting money in the bank every month, and then one day the bank manager locks the door and says, "We don't like your politics, so your money is gone." This sent a shockwave through the central banks of the world. It signaled that dollar reserves are not a neutral asset. They are a political leash. If you don't own the currency, you don't really own the wealth. You are merely holding a permission slip to use that wealth, a slip that can be revoked at any time. Second, there is the issue of devaluation. Since the United States knows the world must buy its debt, there is very little discipline in Washington to balance the budget. The debt piles up, trillions upon trillions. To pay the interest on that debt, the US may eventually be forced to print even more money, diluting the value of every dollar held in every vault from Tokyo to Berlin. It is a form of soft default. They will pay you back the number of dollars they owe you, but those dollars will buy half as much oil as they did when you lent them. It is a silent tax on the world's savings. This is why we are seeing a sudden, quiet shift. Look at what central banks are buying today. They are slowing down their purchases of US Treasuries. They are buying gold at a pace we haven't seen in 50 years. Why gold? Because gold is the only reserve asset that is not someone else's liability. It is the only currency that doesn't require a counterparty to make good on a promise. It is the only way to exit the game. We are not at the end of the dollar yet. The inertia is too strong, the system too deep. But the blind trust is gone. Every country is now looking at that vault beneath their capital city and wondering if they are safe. They are realizing that building a national safety net on a foundation of foreign debt is a strategy with a shelf life. The world is slowly waking up to the reality that they have been working for a currency that can be printed at will, sanctioned at will, and devalued at will. They are realizing that in the poker game of the global economy, they have been stacking chips that the dealer can take off the table whenever he wants. And once you realize the game is rigged, the only logical move is to stop playing. The question isn't if the system will change, but how painful the transition will be when the world finally decides it wants to save in something it actually owns.